Wait, fuel. It's easy to look at this project as a failure, because ultimately we didn't achieve the goal that we set out to do. But I don't think anything where we learn a lot, overall improve the car, is any sort of failure. And I think we were just diagnosing the wrong area of the car. Let me try and explain this pretty quickly. My brother would start his car after letting it sit for 30 to 40 minutes. Maybe he went in to get some groceries, came back out, start the car, whatever. And it would take longer to start than it did initially at the beginning of the day. There would just be this odd time where he would go to start it and it would just take longer. His diagnosis for this was the fuel injectors and part of the ignition coils, which is what we replaced in this video. But that didn't actually end up being the problem, and this didn't particularly solve that issue. Upon further diagnosis, he actually discovered that it's probably a part in the fuel pump itself, and you'd have to replace the entire fuel pump to fix that issue. Overall, it's not a project we're going to end up doing because the cost just isn't worth the overall benefit. But we still learned a lot from this, and overall his car idles and runs a lot better than it did. So still worth it. Now, as I've been talking, he's been working. We saw that he took the battery out. You want to do that on most projects where you're working with anything electrical, which honestly affects most of the car. So at most projects, you're probably just going to be taking the battery out or just unhooking it. Next, he took the fuel injectors off. He sprayed them with WD-40, which is why at the beginning of the video there was fuel being sprayed all over the car. He found on a forum that someone suggested that, and then after doing a little bit more research, found that that actually wasn't a good idea because it causes the O-rings to slip off, and the O-rings are what cause the fuel not to spew everywhere. So that was a mistake that we quickly learned from. Do not spray WD-40 on your fuel injectors. There are parts of your car where WD-40 is great and parts where you should not use it. Also, don't take anything I say as a tutorial. I've said this before, I'll say it again. We are not mechanics. We're just learning as we go. Here he took off the strut bar really quick. At this point, he loosened and took out the ignition coils. And then took out each of the spark plugs and replaced all of those. These are the new ones here. These are called ruthenium spark plugs, and they're something that actually didn't exist when this car was made. They launched around 2020, and they have a higher grade conductivity for spark. And then he torqued them each to spec. I don't remember what we ended up torquing them to, but you can just Google what your car is and what the spark plug should be torqued to. Next, we replaced these rubber nozzles on the ignition coils. I don't know what those parts of the ignition coils are called, but Brian said those are the parts that go out the fastest. So by simply replacing them, you basically replace the ignition coil. I got the camera stationary and helped him do all of those, so it went a little bit quicker. And then he got all the ignition coils back in. At this point, since he had everything else already out, he decided to take the throttle body off and see if it needed cleaned. He ended up replacing the O-ring while he had this off. We didn't get footage of that though. This is him getting the throttle body put all back together, and then it was time to put the battery back in. After that is when we tested the car. Wait, fuel. These two. So that's when we looked it up, figured out it was the O-rings, and had to take them off and redo those. This is us getting the injectors out and replacing the O-rings. Overall, this project wasn't that hard, and the car runs much better for it. Yeah, we had a little bit of a scare there, but it all worked out in the end. And now you can do it too. I'm kidding, you're not supposed to be taking this as a tutorial. Thanks for watching.